Here on The Colour of Country Life, great to be joined again by South Australian Senator Alex Antic. How are you, Alex?
I'm well, thanks, Ricky. How are you?
Great, thanks. Look, you asked a question in Senate inquiry a while back, what is a woman? It seemed like an innocuous question, but gee whiz, it's really taken the spotlight, this issue, and the attacks on Catherine Devers in the federal campaign.
Yeah, it's, as I always say, you shouldn't play with matches, Ricky. You know, that's exactly what we saw there. I mean, it was... Yeah, look, it's a sort of a theme which I'd heard discussed many times, and one of these underlying issues that sounds innocuous, as you say, on the surface, but if you take a logical conclusion back to where it's coming from, it becomes a serious issue. And what I mean by that is the simple fact of asking the question of bureaucrats, and some of them very highly paid and very important roles, this simple question, how do you define a woman? It really should be an easy answer. And the fact that so many of them had so much trouble in providing me with an answer, we did it 3 times to 3 different departments, including the Department of Health. The fact that it provided such silence, I mean, you could almost see the tumbleweeds rolling down the aisles there, shows us how far and wide radical gender theory has drifted into our institutions. And really, that is the point to be taken from all of this. I asked that question of the Workplace Gender Equality Agency, which is an agency that's really built to protect women's rights in the workplace in many ways, of DFAT because of some of the female programs that are involved in our overseas issues, and then finally of the Department of Health. And in each occasion, the answer I was given was, "I'll get back to you. I'll take that on notice," is the term they use when they want to draw the curtains on it and not answer the question in front of the cameras. So that's pretty alarming, and I think it has led to a broader discussion, but it's a discussion we need to have because ultimately this draws into a whole different range of debates, including the transgender and sport issue, which has popped up during the election.
Yeah, well, you've got your Liberal Party colleague, Claire Chandler, the Tasmanian senator, has this bill to kind of, in effect, say girls and women's sport should only be participated in by those that are born female. But then you've got this sort of political stacks on that's happened to one of the Liberal candidates. And now we've got questions regularly being asked to the Prime Minister and the opposition leader about this issue. Why is it such a lightning rod issue in a federal election campaign? Is it about seats in Sydney and marginal seats and whether the Liberal Party can hold them?
Yeah, look, I think it is. And I think the independent candidates, these sort of teal independents, fake independents as we've been calling them, are using these left-wing issues while trying to hide behind the cover of being almost like the Liberal candidates. And in many ways, I think this is highlighting the difference between them. We're seeing that, we've got a candidate in Warringah who is an advocate. I mean, she's really the sort of person that should be going to Parliament every day of the week. A great advocate for women and great advocate for
This is Zali Steggall we're talking about.
No, this is Catherine Deves I'm talking about.
Oh, sorry.
Up against Zali Steggall. Now, why has it come up as an issue? Look, I don't know exactly. As I say, these things tend to, I think, take their own life once the trigger is pulled. And there's a lot of commentary out there. Oh, well, the people of Warringah only want to hear about, the issues that affect them in their local area. But in actual fact, I think Australians want to see their politicians tackling these big values-based issues. And, I think they are incredibly important. And I think they're the sort of questions which should be being posed more broadly, in every election, because underneath all of this, there's this creep, as we call it, the long march through the institutions. And we're at that point now where heads of department bureaucrats won't even tell me that a woman is a biological woman, a woman born a woman. Yeah. So I think it's really captured the public's attention, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, well, this political correctness side of it, it seems theoretical in a federal election campaign, but I've come up against it when coaching kids in representative sport at a primary school level, and then you've got kids running around and there's question marks, well, is that a girl that you're competing against girls? And the girls come off the field and they're irate. They say, well, that's a boy I'm playing against here. And you're put under the shush, the cone of silence. You can't say anything. Yep. That's where the rubber hits the road with this stuff. Yeah,
that's exactly right. And these are issues that affect people in their local environment. As you say, I mean, this would be the same experience that was had by people in Warringah in sports events as well. So I think it's wrong to think that this is not a big issue, and it is something that people can relate to because parents have seen this rolling on. Nobody wants their 14-year-old girl playing against a 14-year-old boy. I don't care what sort of sport it is. And the fact that that's become a controversial statement bells the cat on this issue. We've got to get back to talking these things out as they are. And, we hear a lot from the left, trust the science. Well, let's trust the science on this one.
Yeah, we've heard a lot from the left and Labor Party as well when it comes to believing women, supporting women. I think in a previous iteration they referred to themselves, some of the Labor women, as the handbag hit brigade. Where have they been in supporting Catherine Deves?
Yeah, it's one of the great anomalies in the whole thing, isn't it? It's this whole selective sisterhood, I call it sometimes. You see it time and time again. It's women from the left will back women in as long as they are also from the left and they also share every single view that they have. And when they're conservative women, they get tossed out the window. And we see that with Nicole Flint, who, of course, had the terrible time 3 years ago and really, had no support from the left. People that were normally shouting the sisterhood from the hilltops. So it's an endemic problem. And I think, once again, people need to be careful about everything they hear and they read. You need to trust nothing and verify everything. And when you see people from, one side of politics or the other championing a cause, you've got to ask yourself what's really behind it. And I think this issue of women in sport really once again bells that cat.
Well, someone that's one of your sparring partners in the Senate, I think, who would see herself as a flag bearer for women's rights, is Sarah Hanson Young. Haven't heard anything from her on this topic, but then you've got neither you or she is up for re-election this time round. How does that all work?
Yeah, look, I mean, probably there would be more sensible people than I laying a bit low in the reeds. But my view is there's so much that we need to cover in public life that it doesn't matter whether I'm up for election or not. I'm going to keep saying it. So, but no, look, that is correct. It's a half-Senate election, and your listeners will know that that requires, in each state, the 12 senators that are up, 6 of them get elected at a time. So I'm not up this time, neither is Sarah. We'll elect 6 new senators from South Australia, who are out on the campaign trail at the moment.
All right. Now, just lastly, there was something went up on your Facebook over the long weekend about teachers in South Australia and what they're going to be required to do if they haven't vaccinated against COVID-19 when they go back to school. They're going to have to wear masks, but their colleagues won't. Is that where we're up to at this stage?
Well, it seems to be. And the thing that's most frightening out of all of this is that this seems like a great handout for teachers that have done what they really are entitled to do and selected their own medical treatment. I mean, we're talking about medical autonomy here and individual choice. Once again, I've battled with this for 12 months or more. Being shown the science on this, I would love to know where the science says that somebody who is unvaccinated should be wearing a mask over the top of somebody who's not. And in any event, even if there were science in that, I mean, that is extremely embarrassing for teachers that have made this decision and in my view, are absolutely entitled to do so, to be forced into this almost, wearing a dunce hat to school in order to sort of show themselves up as being someone that's conscientiously objected for whatever reason.
Is it vaccination shaming?
Well, look, that's a question for those that are in charge of the show here, the Chief Health Officer and the State Controller, the Police Commissioner. I mean, I've asked on multiple occasions for evidence to support mandates, to support this theory that somehow vaccinated people are less dangerous to the community than unvaccinated people. And people who've been watching the vaccination trial that's going on at the moment in the Supreme Court would know that Professor Nikolai Petrovsky has given evidence to the court, it was reported in the Advertiser, that it is a nonsense. It is essentially beating your head against a brick wall to persecute people who are unvaccinated from a transmission point of view because simply it makes almost no difference. So, look, once again, this is an alarming trend. I ask, where's the teachers' union on this? The unions have thrown workers under the bus when it comes to mandates. And it is a shame, and it is really quite telling that the unions no longer stand up for the workers in this way.
And just to be clear, in the interests of consistency, this is a concern you've raised on this front while the Liberal Party was in government in South Australia and now while the Labor Party has taken office.
Yeah, look, and my criticism of that really relates to this handballing of responsibility to the bureaucracy. I think this is what you get when you remove the oversight that Parliament gives to these sorts of decisions. And that was done in April 2020. The reins were effectively handed to the State Controller. Difficult times, I understand all of that, but there are a need for checks and balances. We've had those sort of systems for years on end for a reason. And that is because the bureaucracy sees the world a very different way. They're not accountable to the people in the same way that politicians are. And these powers need to be used very, very carefully and judiciously. and with parliamentary oversight. We're not seeing that still.
Well, fascinating stuff, Senator Alex Antic. Thanks for joining us again on Flow. We'll catch you again soon.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks for having me.